We'll read a book called The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen. Contents: Chapter 1, The Magic Mirror. Chapter 2, Grinda and Kai. Chapter 3, Grinda's Search. Chapter 4, Kay in the Castle. Chapter 5, A Helpful Princess. Chapter 6, The Little Lover Girl. Chapter 7, Journey North. Chapter 8, The Snow Castle. Chapter 1, The Magic Mirror. There was once a wicked demon who made the magic mirror. This mirror made everything good look twisted and ugly. Anything bad looked even worse. "It's a fine mirror," sneered the demon students. "Let's show it up to the angels." Flapping their leathery wings, and they flew up and they up until smash! The mirror slipped from their hands, crashed to the ground, and broke into a million tiny pieces. Some pieces were no bigger than a grain of sand, but they were as powerful as the whole mirror. If a speck flew into someone's eye, everything looked horrible and wrong. But if a splinter struck a person's heart, that heart began to freeze. Chapter 2, Grinda and Kay. Not long after the mirror shattered, a girl named Grinda was living next door to a boy named Kai. In all the world, no two friends were as close. One winter's day, as snow was falling, Grinda's grandmother told them the story of the Snow Queen. She lives in an ice north, but in winter she flies around disguised as a snowflake. "Beware of her," the grandma warned. "She's a wicked woman. But don't worry," she added. "If your heart is pure, you will always see the queen for who she is." Wandering home, Kai gazed at the glittering snowflakes drifting down. As he stared, he noticed one flake seemed larger than the others. Then he grasped. The snowflake was definitely growing bigger, until it became a beautiful woman. She was astonishing. Her shimmering white clothes were coated in snow, and her herself was made entirely of ice. "The Snow Queen!" The woman turned her cold, bright eyes on Kai. He shocked he had, and she vanished. "I must have imagined her," he thought. Winter passed, and Kay forgot all about the Snow Queen. Then one day, while he and Grinda watered the rose in her window box, Kay suddenly cried out, "Kai! What is it? Oh, my heart and my eye!" He had felt a sharp jab in his eyes, and another, piercing his heart. But neither Kai nor Grinda could see what had happened. The jabs came from splinters of the broken mirror. At once, Kai began to change and grow cruel. "Those roses are cooked and ugly, but Kai, you've always loved them." Seeing Grinda's frightened face made him angry. He jumped up and left. Grinda listened sadly to his boots creaking down the stairs. After that, Kai saw everything differently. He began to argue and make fun of people in the street. He even mocked Grinda and her roses, though she still loved him. Next winter, Kai ignored Grinda altogether and joined the boys on their sleds in the town square. As they played, a dazzling white sled rode into the square. Its driver was dressed in white from her fur hat to her pointed boots. Everyone but Kai ran away. He shouted, "This looks fun!" and tied his sled to the Snow White's leg. The two sharp splinters of metal had blinded him to danger, for the driver was none other than the Snow Queen herself. The sled picked up speed, and Kai leapt with excitement, hurtling around the square. They dashed out through the city gates. On they flew, though swirling snow. All too soon, the sled stopped. As the driver stood up, Kai realized who she was. "The Snow Queen! You must be frozen. Come and join me in my sled." Quickly, the queen kissed Kai, and his eyes grew colder. She kissed him again, and he forgot all about home. He was trapped. Chapter 3. Grinda's Search. In town, no one knew where Kai had gone. All through the course that winter, Grinda was too sad to do anything. But when spring came, with no sign of her best friends, she decided to look for him. "My dear, Kai may not be alive." "I don't believe it." "The river flows a long way," she thought. "Perhaps the river has passed him on its travels." Putting on her best red shoes, she went down to the river. "If I give you my new red shoes, will you take me to Kai?" She threw her shoes into the river as a gift, but they floated back to her. So she climbed into a boat and to throw them further in, and the boat swept her away. She floated for hours. Grinda was afraid, but she couldn't turn back. She hoped the river would take her past someone who had seen Kai. But she saw no one. As dusk fell, she spotted a logs-covered cottage. The boat began to drift to the bank, and an old woman hobbled over. "You poor child, are you lost?" The old woman helped Grinda onto the bank, and Grinda told her all about Kai. She described their happy days playing until they suddenly changed. First he grew mean, then he disappeared altogether. Now the old woman wasn't wicked, but she did know a little magic, and she lived a lonely life. "I will make sure the girl stays with me," she muttered and cast a spell. To be extra sure, she made all her losses vanish. She didn't want to remind Grinda of the losses at home and her search for Kai. "Eat as many cherries as you like." Her magic worked. Grinda played happily in the woman's garden, and her old life was soon no more clear than a dream. Even so, sometimes she had a feeling that something wasn't quite right. Grinda might have stayed in the cottage forever, but one day she spotted a painted flower on the woman's sun hat. It was a rose. In that moment, Grinda remembered everything. Kai, she cried. "How could I forget you? Oh, I wasted so much time." Without even saying goodbye to the old woman, she ran away. Chapter 4. Kai in the Castle. Meanwhile, the Snow Queen had taken Kai to her magnificent castle in the far north. Kai was neither happy nor sad. His feelings were frozen inside him. He sat at the queen's feet on a vast ice lake. So cold he was almost blue, but he didn't notice. The queen sat sighing on her throne, bored. Looking down on Kai, she decided to play a game with him. "Solve my puzzle and I will set you free," she declared. Kai looked at her blankly. The queen waved a pale hand at some block of ice. If you put those in the right order, they will spell a word, she said, with a cruel smile. Slowly, Kai's frozen brain realized she was telling him to spell something. He so wanted to please her, but he just couldn't do it. The Snow King laughed. You will never do it, my ice little boy, she said. Her cold laugh bounced off the walls of the castle, but it was amusing to watch you try. Chapter 5. A Helpful Princess. Grinda had learned for hours to get away from the cottage, with no idea where she was going. At last, stumbling through a gloomy forest, she had to rest. A curious crow hopped up to her, his head to one side. "Caw!" he croaked. "What are you doing? All alone in the world?" "I'm looking for my friend Kai. Have you seen him?" The crow listened to Grinda's story. "Caw, caw," he said. "I think I might know where he is." Grinda couldn't believe her luck. "Tell me," she begged. Excitedly. "Well now," croaked the crow, "there's a princess in this kingdom and she was looking for a prince. In no time at all, men were lining up to meet her, but no one was good enough." Then a young boy appeared from nowhere. His clothes were torn and his boots cracked, but he went inside the palace and, would you believe it, the princess liked him so much, she married him. "That must be Kai!" Grinda cried. "He's handsome and clever, and his boots so squeak. Oh, please take me to him." "Caw!" "That's not so easy done," said the crow. But Grinda pleaded and pleaded with him. "I will speak to my wife. She works in the palace." The crow flew off and Grinda waited nervously. Long after sunset, he returned with good news. Trembling with hope, Grinda followed the crow to the palace. Inside, its grand looms were draped in the purple night. As they clapped through the ballroom, shadowy figures swept by. "Who are they?" Grinda asked in a whisper. "Dreams," replied the crow's wife. "They take the lawyer thoughts for midnight life." In the most splendid room of all, 2 giant flowers hung from a palm tree. The first flower had pure white petals and curled up in the middle lay the princess, fast asleep. The flower beside her was red. Grinda stepped forth and looked in. "Kai, it's me, Grinda." And the prince woke up. "Who is it?" he mumbled. Grinda stared at him and burst into tears. It was Kai at all. Grinda noises, gulps, and sobs woke the princess. "Who are you?" she cried. And then as Grinda didn't look dangerous, she gave her a handclasp and let her sit down to explain. That night, Grinda slept in the palace. In the morning, the princess gave Grinda her second best dress and begged her to stay. But all Grinda wanted was to search for Kai. "I will walk around the world if I have to," she said. The princess smiled and called for her carriage. Grinda grasped. It glistened with golden sugar, and inside, the walls were lined with sticky buns and fat cream cakes. For a second, she simply stared. "Is this really for me?" she asked, pointing to the golden carriage. "Well, you can hardly walk around to the whole world," said the princess, helping her climb in. "Don't worry, I have 3 more just like it." The carriage sat up and Grinda waved through the window. "Goodbye, good luck," cried the princess. Chapter 6. The Little Lober Girl. The carriage rolled into a dark forest, but it shone so brightly that it dazzled a band of lovers, who were hiding among the trees. "Guard!" they strictly and rushed to attack. Said an old lober woman, grabbing Grinda. "She looks tastier than the carriage. Let's hit her." But as she raised her knife, something sprang up and bit her ear. "Ow! You mustn't eat her. I want her." It was the daughter of the shop lober, and she was always got her own way. "I want her for my friend," said the lober girl, pointing to Grinda, "and to play with her carriage." "Hump," said the old woman grumpily. The little lober girl pushed Grinda into the carriage and squashed in beside her. "Are you a princess?" "No, I'm looking for my friend Kai." As they rode deeper into the forest, Grinda told her story yet again. But nightfall, they arrived at Lober's Dream, lonely castle. The little lober girl yawned. "You can sleep with me and my pets," she told Grinda. Grinda frowned. The lober girl had very strange pets. 100 pigeons roosted in the rafter, and 2 wood pigeons sat in a silver cage. "They are all mine," boasted the little lober girl. "But Ba is Passover," and she pointed to a reindeer who was tied to the wall. "Say hello, Ba." "Bedtime," she announced suddenly. Flopped down, Grinda stayed awake, watching the robbers flash their knives around the fire. Things were worse than ever. She was stuck here, a prisoner again. "I will never find Kai," she snapped. Then the pigeons began talking. "Coo! Did you ever see such a frozen boy? Coo! His face was like ice. He never that now the Snow Queen has him." "Could the Snow Queen have Kai?" wondered Grinda. "Please, where does the Queen live?" she asked the pigeons politely. "Somewhere north," they cooed. "Ask Ba if he knows." The reindeer looked up. "Yes," he said, in a slow, deep voice. "I know her home. I'm from there too. She lives in the far, far north, past Lapland." The little lober girl, who was still awake, heard everything. "You don't want to find that rotten old Snow Queen," she said. "You'd be safer here with us." But Grinda was desperate to find Kai. "Then I shall let you go," said the lober girl, as proudly as the queen herself. "Ba shall take you. You will need food." She went on, finding Grinda bread and ham. With a hard shove, she helped Grinda onto the reindeer's silky smooth back. Ba bounded up happily, racing low to his home. The little lober girl stood alone in the moonlight, watching and waving until they were out of sight. Chapter 7. Journey North. It was a long way even to Lapland. When they arrived, Ba and Grinda were spotted by a Lap woman. "You're frozen!" she exclaimed to Grinda, taking them into her hut. "And you've a long way to go," she added when she heard their tale. "You're in luck," she told them. "The Snow Queen is away just now, freighting the northern light. You must go to the Fulmark. I know a Finn woman who can help." Grinda watched in surprise as the woman quickly scribbled a message to her friend on a dried fish. But dropped up once more across the snowy plains. until they reached the Finnish woman's tiny hut. Please help us. First, the Finn woman with the fish. Then she listened as Grinda breathlessly told her tale. Nodding, she fetched a permit from her shelves and studied it. Finally, she took Bob to one side. Kai is with the Snow Queen, she whispered. He's under her spell. Because of spindles of glass in his eyes, and he's hurt. To rescue him, Grinda must get the splinters out. But how? Growled Bob. Can you give her some magic? Grinda has come this far, said Finn woman wisely. She is good and sweet and innocent. That will be all magic she needs. Take Grinda as far as the Snow Queen's garden, she went on. But don't tell her what I've told you. She swept Grinda up and placed her on the reindeer's back. Go quickly now. I hope Bob knows where we're going. Bob glossed until they reached a brush with closely laid berries. There he stopped and let Grinda down. Grinda was left all alone in the ice-cold, glittering snowflakes whistling around her, making it difficult for her to move. They were guards of the Snow Queen's castle. As she hesitated, the guards took on terrible shapes, huge hedgehogs with vicious spikes, fang-toothed snakes, and furious bears sprang at her. Grinda cried out in fear, but she didn't run away. Standing boldly before the guards, she told them to leave her alone. Her breath blew out in misty clouds around her. To her astonishment, these clouds became angels, who began to attack the guards. Seeing the angels gave Grinda strength, she punched the bear nearest to her, and he melted at her touch. Then the angels warmed Grinda's eyes, feet, and hands, and she hurried into the castle. Chapter 8. The Snow Castle. Inside the cold, empty hall, Kai was puzzling over the Snow Queen's challenge. He sat still, thinking hard, so still that he seemed frozen stiff. And that was how Grinda found him when she appeared moments later. Kai! She called, running up to him. She wrapped her arms around him, but he didn't move. Grinda didn't know what to do. It was like hugging a block of ice. He was frozen stiff, and he didn't look at all. Hot tears dripped from her nose onto Kai's chest. They reached right through to his heart, twirling the ice and washing away splinters of grass. Kai seemed to soften. So Grinda started to talk about the losses back home. Her words and his melting heart brought tears to Kai's eyes too, tears which washed away the splinter there. He could see clearly again. Grinda! She shouted. It was really you. The old Kai was back. Grinda and Kai laughed and cried and jumped for joy. Even the blocks of ice they gathered and danced. When the blocks fell down again, they spelled the word entirely. Kai was free. Grinda kissed her cheeks so that they glowed. Grinda, yuck, said Kai, but Grinda kept kissing him until he was completely crowned. Let's go, begged Kai. The Snow Queen could be back at any minute. She's back now, said an icy voice behind them. Kai and Grinda looked at each other in horror. You said if I spelled the word I was free. Kai shouted bravely. And there it is, I'm going. The Snow Queen was furious, but there was nothing she could do. She had given her word and she was bound by it. Laughing with relief, Grinda and Kai toured outside the castle to find the bar and friend waiting for them. To Glinda's delight, the reindeer carried them all away home. At long last, they arrived at Glinda's house. Her grandmother had given up hope of ever seeing either of them again. Is it really you? You defeated the Snow Queen? Glinda and Kai hugged the grandmother over and over. This is truly a fairy tale ending, cried the grandmother, and the roses in the window box nodded their hands, as if to agree. This is a fairy tale that called The Snow Queen. Thank you for listening.